Ciao everyone, this is Nate on the Stone. Welcome back to my channel, and today we're talking about why the Electoral College, far from being a relic of the 18th century, is still needed to preserve our equality and our freedom. In case anyone needs a refresher, the Electoral College is the system put in place by the Constitution for the election of the president, because contrary to what we might think, we the people don't actually elect the president. When we vote in presidential elections, we're actually voting for our state electors. Every state has as many electors as it has representatives in the House and senators. So for example, New York State has 29 electors, 2 senators plus 27 reps in the House. The state political parties choose their electors in their state party conventions, and then whichever candidate wins the popular votes of that particular state, his party's electors go to the state capitals in December and cast their electoral votes, usually for their own candidate. When a candidate receives 270 electoral votes, he becomes president. And this is why a candidate can win the popular vote, the total number of votes taken throughout the country, but still lose the presidency. And because of that scenario, more and more people are actually saying that the Electoral College has to be abolished. The argument goes that the Electoral College makes the presidential elections inherently undemocratic, or in the words of some people, the Electoral College is the greatest threat to democracy that we face today, because it allows the will of the people to be ignored. I mean, what else can you call it when a majority of people select candidate A, but candidate B is still sworn in as president? But the argument goes further than that. It actually says that the Electoral College compounds that anti-democratic mindset by making some votes more valuable than others, and it does this through swing states. Andrew Prokop, writing at Vox, railed against the idea of swing states, states like Florida, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, saying that they hold an inordinate amount of power over choosing who gets to become president. It's no secret that candidates devote most of their time and energy and money to these swing states rather than on safe states, states that can be reliably predicted to go for one candidate or another depending on their political party. This means that the people living in the swing states are actually the ones who get to decide who's going to become president, which means that their votes are the ones that are more sought after, which means that their votes are the ones that are inherently more valuable than the votes of people living in safe states. The solution, people say, is a national popular vote, which would make every vote equal and which would force candidates to campaign everywhere to gain as many votes as possible and not simply concentrate on a couple of swing states. And this idea isn't just pie in the sky that would be nice to do one day. It actually has a concrete plan behind it, the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. Like its name suggests, the NPVIC is a compact or agreement between the states. States that sign onto it agree to give their electoral votes to the winner of the national popular vote, regardless of whether that candidate won their state's popular vote or not. And it makes sense, right? If the Electoral College hinders democracy and actually makes votes unequal, and honestly, who wants to do that? Except for maybe people like him. Shouldn't the college be done away with? Well, maybe not, because while abolishing the college might be a win for democracy, it would also set back real equality and real freedom. The idea that most of the power in a presidential election resides in the swing states is plausible on its face, admittedly, because, like I mentioned, candidates spend a lot of time, money, and energy on these states. The National Popular Vote Interstate Compact's website, nationalpopularvote.com, said that in 2012, all 253 general election events occurred in only 12 states, and 2/3 of those events happened in only 4 states: Florida, Ohio, Virginia, and Iowa. In 2016, 94% of all general election events took place in 12 states, and 2/3 of those events happened in 6 states: Florida, Ohio, Virginia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. But here's the interesting thing. You might have noticed that in the 2016 election, 1 state was taken off of that exclusive list and 3 states were added onto it. And that blows this whole argument out of the water, because even if we accepted at face value that all the power in a presidential election is concentrated in swing states, that power is really, really arbitrary. And this power is arbitrary because who's a swing state and who's a safe state is in a constant state of flux because people change their minds, they change their opinions, they can change their priorities, and therefore they can change their votes. The South used to be solidly Democratic. California, surprise, surprise, used to be a red state. We still see this today with the rise of the so-called purple state, like Arizona, that used to be safely red, Republican, but are now becoming more and more blue, Democrat. So candidates have to keep their eyes on the whole electoral map, at least to some extent, or else find that their party's safe states aren't as safe as they used to be. And this brings up an equally important point. When you look at an electoral map, it can be very easy to get the impression that states are voting en bloc for a particular candidate. But if you take an individual state and you break it down into its counties, then you get a very different picture. You often see that states are divided amongst themselves as to who they're voting for. And that's because it's in the state counties where the real battles are fought. To give one example, in 2012, President Obama won Ohio and Pennsylvania. But in 2016, those states actually flipped to Donald Trump. And they flipped because enough counties flipped their votes from blue to red. If enough counties change their votes to flip two entire states in the space of just 4 years, one election cycle, then the power that is in swing states is even more haphazard than we already established it to be. And this means, both potentially and technically, that every state could be up for grabs. And that means that even right now with the Electoral College, every vote matters and is of equal worth because you can't take any votes for granted. And that brings up another important point. Defenders of the Electoral College have often made the argument that the college is needed so that small states in rural areas can actually have a voice in presidential elections, because without it, the candidates would naturally just tend to concentrate in the densely populated areas, the places where there are more people and therefore more votes. Defenders of the National Popular Vote Plan say you don't need the college for that, because only 15% of the American population lives in areas that have populations over 365,000 people, and you can't win an election on only 15% of the population, which means that candidates would still be forced to go out everywhere and campaign. But here's the problem. The numbers don't add up. Now, FYI gang, I'm about to throw out a lot of numbers here, but don't worry, stay with me, we're gonna be okay. In 2016, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by about 1.3 million votes, 62.5 million votes compared to Trump's 61.2 million votes. She did this even though she won far fewer state counties than Trump. There are about 3,100 state counties in the United States. Hillary won 500 of those state counties, Trump won the other 2,600, so roughly about 84% of America's landmass. But even though Trump won the country geographically, he still lost the popular vote. And he lost the popular vote in large part because 88 of those counties that Hillary Clinton won were from the 100 most populated counties in the United States. If she had lost those counties, she would have lost the popular vote by about 11.5 million votes. To put this in perspective, the two most populous counties in the United States are Los Angeles County, where Los Angeles, California is, and Cook County, Illinois, where Chicago is. Los Angeles County has approximately 9.8 million people. Cook County has approximately 5.1 million people. That gives us a total population of about 15 million people. And even taking into account the people who aren't eligible to vote, can't vote, and don't vote, that still means that a very good, sizable chunk of Hillary Clinton's 62 million popular vote win came from those two counties alone. Now, what do all of those numbers mean? Well, let me show you. Behind me is just one of many rural counties here in the American Midwest. Total population, about 17,000. Farmers, manual laborers, small business owners for the most part. Nobody really important or famous has come from here. and so nobody really famous or important comes here. This county is really the definition of a flyover county. And because nobody of much importance has come from here, and because nobody of any importance really comes here, the people who live here, work here, die here, they really have no power, no clout. All they can do is vote, try to get their ideas, their opinions, their points of view into Washington at the next election. And that's why a national popular voting plan would completely drown these people. What else could it do? When two counties can give a candidate a sizable portion of their popular vote win, why would any candidate spend time, money, and energy coming here to court the people here? If the votes are where the people are, and the people are concentrated in a handful of counties, that's where the candidates are going to go. And this is where the irony of a national voting plan comes into play, because these people advocating for it, their hearts might be in the right place, but their heads are working wrong. Because in their quest to make elections more democratic, they're actually going to make counties like this at the mercy of just a handful of counties, just because those counties have more people in them. But nay, didn't you just say that counties can be switched between elections, so why couldn't it happen here? Theoretically, yes. Practically, not so much. It's not really an open secret that the more urban a place is, the more it tends to lean to the left. Richard Florida at citylab.com in 2013 went through a list of variables of why this is so, listing urban density itself, education, and the type of work that usually is done in urban areas. A much higher concentration of technology, large business owners, the arts and theater and the like. All of these factors tend to make people vote and lean to the left. You add to that fact that people are very seldom persuaded by pure facts and argumentation, in the words of Scott Adams, Dilbert's creator, and on top of that, you add that we seem to be living in an environment where if you disagree with someone on political ideology, politics, what have you, then you are immediately written off as a neo-Nazi and a terrorist, a hater, and a bigot, which doesn't really help when you're trying to change people's minds. So a national popular voting plan would actually cement inequality in our elections, but it would actually do more than that. By making elections dependent on the people that are concentrated in just a handful of counties, tyranny would actually be the order of the day, where those people in those few counties would be able to impose their ideas, their worldview, their opinions on the rest of the country. People who live in rural counties like this aren't going to be able to have a say or do anything about it. They're just going to be dragged along for the ride. And that's the inherent problem with democracy itself. It just relies on a simple majority rule, with no check, no balance, no hold to actually keep them accountable. Whatever they want is what they're going to get. And just to make it even worse, there's no guarantee of stability or anything in this. If this year the majority wants A, and then next year the majority wants B, and then next year the majority wants C, even if A, B, or C are completely different policies, that is what's going to be reflected. We're just dragged along with the whims of the majority. And that sort of arrangement makes it very difficult, almost impossible, for everyone to actually have and to practice freedom. Well, that about wraps up everything for right now, gang. As always, if you liked the video, whether you agreed with me or not, don't forget to give it a like and to share it with your friends on Twitter, Facebook, and the rest of the social media platforms. And if you like videos about the culture, politics, and religion, but from a different POV, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel and to ring the bell for notifications, so that you will always know when I post new videos like this every Tuesday. Videos you're not going to want to miss. As always, thank you for watching, for giving me a little bit of your time. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed to my channel already. And I will see you all again here next week, gang, on top of the stone. Ciao.